Welcome to Point Blank, where we suss out the issues that matters to you most. And I'm Elsie.
And I'm Shiting, and joining us tonight are some of the most articulate students in Singapore. They are the debaters from the Ministry of Finance Budget Debate Challenge. And on my right is Benjamin from RJC, right?
Yes.
And Amaris from MGS.
Yeah.
Glendon from HCI.
Yes. Nicholas from RI.
Nicholas, he introduced himself. And Sarah from BJ. And lastly, David from ACSI.
Yes. David is in this nice green shirt. It blends very well with us so far.
Okay, and earlier we had a little budget party with our drinks and Swiss rolls. And now we are going to talk about serious stuff, what happened during the budget.
Yes.
So, what's your general impression of it? Okay, let's start from Benjamin.
It was very comprehensive, very detailed, and had a wealth of measures that were essential to preserving the integrity of the Singapore economy, as well as the welfare of its people. So yes, we were quite impressed.
Is that a joke?
No, it's not. As in, it was really very comprehensive and very big, and had a lot of measures. It was really, really long.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess he did cover a lot of areas. He mentioned about the 5 components and all that. Was there anything that stood out for you?
Nothing in particular, actually, because all the measures most of them are actually very standard, but it's the boldness of the approach that you are willing to go so far as to enter a deficit in order to ensure that your country is safe.
Okay,
Well,
nice.
this is the first time that the Singapore government is dipping into our past reserves to fund some of the stimulus packages, the components.
Okay, let's talk about the consequences of that later.
Yep.
So, how about Amaris? What do you think of it?
Well, compared to, for example, the measures that countries like America have taken, I think the Singapore budget has acknowledged its inability in fully solving the economic problem, because the stem of it is mainly from foreign countries, because we rely extremely heavily on exports. So I think what the main focus has been on is making sure that the lives of the common Singaporean man is kept good, is kept the same, and that if not, we can, and if on top of that, to take this as an opportunity to improve the standards of living, and it's really admirable on the part of the government.
Debater indeed. Okay, how about you?
My first impression was that it was very unique. It was very extremely bold, because this budget, Singapore has never experienced a budget that has actually dipped into reserves. Singapore has also never undertaken measures such as giving loans to companies, bailing companies out, because these measures, in the past, they were viewed as a moral hazard. But I guess since circumstances are different now, Singapore cannot export its way to recovery because it's a worldwide crisis, and I think the government recognized that the government is taking these unique steps, and killing these so-called sacred cows in order to restore stability. So it's quite commendable on the part of the government. So I think this budget is quite comprehensive and your work.
So the general feel over here is government is doing a good job. How about the other side? Nicholas?
I do feel that the government is doing a good job as well. And what did strike me was how detailed and comprehensive it was, to borrow Benjamin's words. And in fact, the way it covered for all the bases, in a manner of speaking. Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, for you?
I think what's really interesting is that it showed solidarity with the people who would probably suffer under the financial crisis, as well as it provides measures for businesses to continue surviving. And not only that, but it also provides measures for the long term, like in terms of competitiveness, innovation. I'm glad that we're still keeping that, instead of just focusing on helping people. And that was what impressed me about the budget.
Very good.
How about you?
Yes. All of them have given such wonderfully well thought out answers. Whereas I was staring at the table and the loss of snacks on it and wondering where they had gone. But upon reflection, I must commend the Minister of Finance, Tharman, for speaking for 2 hours on what was, quite honestly, to me, a rather esoteric topic. But nevertheless, it shows a certain amount of commitment, that they put so much thought and detail into it. And I tend to agree with everything which the others have said. There's not much I can say except that the government has doing a good job. It's important to remember that the government, in formulating this budget, remember that when it comes to all diseases, you have to look at prevention and cure. In this case, they looked at curing the immediate effects of it, such as people who have salary cuts and people who are facing difficulties now, but also with other measures such as retraining and refinancing loans and so on, looking at preventing further crises in the future so that, the long term is also taken care of. And I think that's something that is very good, yes. And I think that says a lot about Singapore, that that our entire economic trajectory over the past 30 years or so, such as prudent fiscal policies and so on, has been built up to accrue reserves which can then be used to solve these times of crisis. It shows a certain farsightedness that I think makes one very confident about the government's ability to govern. However, I am not a government stooge. I am a bit yes, I am concerned about pick a number from 1 to 5.
4.
Okay, 4 issues. Okay. Firstly, the question is it enough? Okay, I know $20.6 billion to you and me may seem like a lot of money. However, when you listen to the amount to how alarming the economic situation is right now, which Tharman clearly elucidated at the beginning of the speech as well at the very end of the speech, you do have to wonder, is $20.6 billion really enough?
So what about the rest? What do you think? He said 20.6 billion maybe not sufficient or maybe too much. What do the rest think?
I think that the question of whether it's enough or not enough cannot be evaluated at this point in time by anyone of our level, because we don't know the statistics, we don't know the real nature of what is going on, because after all that is, as David said, very esoteric. But we have to remember that compared to other countries, we will always have a more modest stimulus package because the crisis doesn't really hit us that hard, because our banks don't have the toxic assets. We don't have to buy it over through some toxic asset relief program like the TARP in the US. So we don't need that much money to begin with. So I think 20.6 billion is fairly alright, but as to whether it really is too little or too much, can't tell lah.
And also the finance minister talked about jobs, about retraining, right? And that is to keep the jobs so that the breadwinner can continue supporting the family rather than relying on the state. So what do you all think? I mean, based on your debate topics and motions, I know some of you were doing on the pro-business motion, and some of you were doing other topics. So maybe on that you can comment?
Personally, I feel that helping companies retain their workers is a better option than allowing companies to retrench their workers and then having these workers go to retraining when they find new jobs. I mean, keep the workers where they are, because these workers have unique skills that can be applied to these jobs. Like, you wouldn't expect a banker to be retrenched and then go for retraining and then become an insurance agent or something. I think that keeping these people in the jobs that they're best suited to is the best use of resources, the best use of manpower, and also it gives the resources allocated to retraining to the people who really need this retraining. So I think that is a good policy.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true. Okay. And in Tharman's word, he said to save costs so that you don't have to cut jobs, and not cut jobs to save costs. So yeah, that's the way to go. What about the sentiment over here?
I think the job credit scheme is a very good idea, because before that, and they collected some pre-budget feedback and people were talking about cutting the CPF, right? But in the minister's speech, he talked about how they're not going to consider that option. So they brought into play this new scheme, the job credit scheme. And I think that's really good, because if you do cut the CPF, it's going to affect some of the lower income workers who sometimes use their CPF to pay for mortgage. So it's a good idea that they help to cut the cost of production or the cost of hiring these workers, but yet still pay them the same salary, and even more with the schemes and packages to help them.
True. And that brings us to our next point, actually, that we have to cut into our national reserve to finance all this budget deficit. So what are the consequences to our economy if we do that?
Andres?
Oh, okay. Well, like they said, these reserves have always been saved for a rainy day, and well, it's pouring right now. So if the government has to do what it has to do, and at the end of the day, if the economy is going to be boosted in the long run, and if the people are going to be able to improve their lives, or at the very least maintain the status quo, then I think it's worth it. And you have to keep in mind that how much we're actually taking out of the national reserves is about maybe 1 to 2%, and so let's hope that the consequences won't be too dire.
here. David?
Yes, okay. Before I was rudely interrupted. no, I agree. Yes.
I wanted to give the rest a
Yes,
chance to
yes, yes.
express something.
Yes, it's okay. It's
Or
okay.
else we couldn't
I understand.
monologue.
program.
Yes, I understand. Okay. Okay, yeah. With regards to the points, is 20.6 billion a good enough amount of money? Yeah. See, which is where I'm talking about. Is it too much? Because you see, $1 billion is a lot of money. It's beyond the human mind to comprehend just how much money it is. I mean, how many pizzas can you buy with $1 billion? Probably 1,000 million or something. But anyway, it may be too much. Okay, and therefore, is running a deficit of 6.6% in your budget, is dipping into reserves really worth it if it is really unnecessary? Okay, so that's the third point. Now the last point, okay, the last point is a very philosophical point, okay? It's the point about how big should the government be? You see, the government is doing a lot of stuff, doing a lot of measures, trying to help a lot of people, but sometimes, you know, well, maybe not in this country, but maybe in other countries, people would think that the government should step back a little because governments have bureaucracies and inefficiencies and so on, and therefore you should let the free market take its course and whatever neoclassical stuff, economic stuff you want to talk about. Yes, so the question of whether or not we are slowly but steadily becoming into a nanny state where the people constantly rely on the government to bail them out and get them out of trouble all the time, as opposed to relying on themselves. Of course, that's counterbalanced by the argument that families must help their members and so on. So those are the four main concerns that I have. That being said, however, I am not qualified to judge because I lack knowledge, I lack skills, and so on. And so the only people who do have them, I guess, are the people with all the stats and numbers, which is the government. So in this case, we have to trust them by virtue of the fact that there's asymmetric information.
Well, I think David brought up a good point then. Should the government do less or do more? Okay, but because we're running out of time, so we're not able to fully discuss that. But when we come back next, we will talk about your debating experience and what you've learned from the debate challenge.
See you later.
See you later.
Describe yourself with 5 words.
Busy, 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 busy.
What is one thing about yourself that most people don't know?
I knit.
What do you think makes a good debater?
A person who enjoys debating.
Do you become a debater to feel empowered?
No.
Is the stereotype that debaters are boring people who have no life true?
No.
Why not?
Because other than debating, I have to do a lot of other things in school.
Like knitting?
Yes.
Are debaters generally quarrelsome?
No.
Do you have the occupational hazard of rebutting people all the time?
No, I'm actually quite unopinionated.
Describe yourself in one sentence.
I'm quirky, bubbly, and fun.
What is the one thing about debating that you like best?
Being passionate and also the sense of adrenaline that comes about when you work with your team and you're on the floor.
What do you think makes a good debater?
Someone who's clear, someone who's concise, and someone who is also adaptable and able to adapt to anything that you hear when you're debating.
What is the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you during a debate?
When I first started out and all my teammates were really experienced, I spoke for 1 minute and one of them burst into tears.
Do you think that all debaters are smart Alex?
No, in fact, no. We have to learn to be very accepting of what other people tell us, especially our coaches. So no, we're not.